80% of you listening to this struggle saying no to things that don't serve your purpose or advance your business, and because of that, your schedule gets clustered and you always feel busy. Welcome back to another episode of the Elite Business Advice podcast. My name is Chris Moore, the founder of Elite Business Advisors, your host for the podcast here. We're in the second episode of our series called Back to Basics. And these episodes aren't really stacking on top of each other. And what I mean by that is this week's doesn't really build off of last week's. There'll be a couple little points. But if you haven't listened to last week's, continue on here. You can always go back and re-listen to it to get the full picture. But this whole series is based on a kind of a reevaluation of the basics of our businesses that sometimes get overlooked or sometimes we get complacent about within our business as we grow. Some of these things might be something you realize, hey, I really have to get better at this. Some of these things might be, man, this is an area I can actually improve on. I'm doing good with it, but I can get even better. Or again, it might be something that's like, man, I used to be really good at this. What kind of happened? Complacency can set in when we're not intentional. So we kicked this off last week. This whole series we kicked off last week talking about how do we actually get stuff done in our business? How do we have a system to do things to make progress in our business? Because I can, again, sit here and give the best advice in the world and you should do this and you need to have this in place for your business. But if you don't have a way to actually follow through and get it done, your time here is kind of useless, right? Aside from hopefully shifting into thinking more like a professional business owner. So today, I want to talk about another thing we see a lot, which is honoring your calendar. Okay, so last week we talked about how do we get stuff done. And part of that, where this kind of does piggyback a little bit, is sometimes in order to get stuff done in our business, we have to be good at honoring our calendar. And so what does it mean to honor your calendar? What are some practical tips for utilizing your calendar? And most importantly, how do you use it to be a helpful tool for you and not something you're just a slave to? And so I'm going to answer all that here today, give you some practical uses, give you some advice on how to leverage your calendar, and a couple disciplines to work on. I got 4 main points today we're going to go through. So I hope it helps. Thanks for plugging in. This is the Elite Business Advice podcast. So one of the first pieces of advice I can give you here out of this whole thought on how do we leverage our calendar better is how do we use our calendar as building a system? One thing that I love, and there's the argument about digital and about physical. Okay, I, for the most part, live in the digital world when it comes to everything productivity related. The only thing I'm actually a physical person on is books. I like having a physical, tangible book. Kindle 50-50 still. But I like having physical books. Everything else I mentioned maybe on last week or earlier on this year that I've transitioned to a digital kind of planner for goal setting and stuff. Even a physical one was just, I never had it with me when I wanted it. I live and die by my calendar and my to-do list, as we talked about that last week in that app Trello. So I'm just when it comes to productivity, because I'm on the go, because I don't carry a purse with me to have stuff in, right? I need digital in my life. And so when you have another kind of pro for being a digital calendar person versus a physical paper planner calendar person is you can use your calendar to create a system. And it makes it really easy because you can make an action once and never have to think about it again. Whereas if you have paper, you may have to redo this every quarter, at least every year, etc. And so I've leveraged my calendar to build a system of things that repeat. For example, a couple thoughts for you guys. Quarterly tax payments. If you need to be making them, if you've always said, I want to start doing this, but you always forget about it and you ignore the emails that we send out 4 times a year as a reminder, you should just put it in your calendar. Because guess what? The dates don't really change. They might fluctuate a day or two based on if the 15th of the month falls on a weekend, but for the most part, they don't change. They happen in the same 4 months every single year: January, April, June, and September. So I just put it in for the first week of every month. I have a repeating reminder each of those 4 months in my calendar that says this week, make quarterly estimated tax payment. And guess what? That's usually my trigger to send out our value add email for those 4 times a year as well. So every month for the rest of forever, it's just a recurring event in my calendar that I made a decision once to build it the system, and I never have to think about it again until I see it in my calendar that week. Okay. So again, we talk about things like this, and it's taking that mental load off and putting it into a system. And it's freeing to me because I don't have to be like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't forget to make that. Or I'm sitting here, if it's March something, I got to remember we got to make an estimated payment by this. Like, no, it's in my calendar. It's out of sight, out of mind, but it's a system that will remind me to do it. Another thing, 1099 filings happens every year in January as well. Okay. I have a repeating event the second week in my calendar, whatever the second Monday of every January is. In my calendar, it says file your 1099s. Now, I may not do it right that second, but that's my prompt to know within the next week or two I do, and then it gets transferred to my to-do list. Okay. Our monthly value add email. I have that in my calendar on a monthly repeating task. I don't remember what I picked off the top of my head here. It doesn't matter because it's in there. But it's my reminder every month to go through and do our monthly value add email to you guys. If you're not on our list for that, by the way, feel free to DM us your email address. We're happy to add you onto the database. If you're on social watching this, you can shoot me an email, chris@elitebusinessadvisors.com. I'd be happy to add you to that value add email that goes out once a month to our database of painting contractors all over the country. So again, we keep it value add for you guys. It's not salesy. So again, all in a system, right? These things then get transferred from my calendar into Trello on my to-do list that we talked about last week every time I create that weekly to-do list, right? So it's just taking it out of the calendar, putting it in there, bam, then I execute on it. But the calendar is that reminder. I've also done this, and I've just started this at the end of last year, or I guess last year, and so I'm kind of building it out more and more, but I'm also doing this with a system for house maintenance stuff, right? What are the things that need done at certain frequencies throughout the year? One thing, changing out our furnace filter. Try to do that every 90 days. It was not happening every 90 days because I just don't think about it, right? Our furnace filter is out of sight, out of mind. That thing was disgusting, especially with all the home projects that I like to do. So now I just have a dedicated calendar in my iPhone for house things, and I'm building out a system in there where every 90 days there's an alert that says change your furnace filter. Every month from March through October, there's a reminder that says next lawn treatment application, because I try to treat our yard monthly 8 times. And I built out a whole system for that, right? So, because again, I do the same thing, like, man, when was the last time I fertilized it? Or when did I put the weed and feed down or whatever? And then I was constantly trying to research, well, what should I do? And what should I put down? So I just built out a system for it, right? And so I leverage my calendar as a system for repeating events. Okay. I also use it as something for a down the road type thing, right? So I have my immediate weekly to-do list. And if you reach out and say, hey, can you reach out to me next week? I'm going to go put it at the beginning of every week. In my calendar, there's a section that says this week, and then it's got a whole bunch of to-dos on it, right? It's not a repeating thing like everything else I just mentioned, but it's hey, don't forget to do this. And that might be I've already went in when I was thinking about it and put the week before Expo to send out the welcome email that we usually do to anybody that we know is going to Expo. We will do that with stuff for a retreat. By the way, I do have a lot of stuff for our retreat as a repeating system now, but there's deadlines and stuff that I already have in my calendar. No, hey, this week we need to send them the final head count. Hey, this week we need to send them the final food menu. Hey, this week we need to do this. And that's in June, right? To where then when that week rolls around, when I make that weekly to-do list, I look at my calendar, I take everything off there, put it into my to-do list, right? So when I'm planning in the future, that is just my little hack to how to make sure things get done, right? So utilize your calendar as a system. When you build these things in place, when you just become routine, it was weird at first. It was clunky, but then I just kept doing it and I got used to it, right? And then I started doing a lot of these repeating events that happen annually, monthly, quarterly. You can set these custom repeat things in a lot of different ways. So there's a way to probably find what you need to do. So Um, Second point, get really good at time blocking. And I feel like time blocking is like the cliche of productivity. Everybody knows they should time block, and everybody sucks at time blocking. And I don't really know why. I think it's because they're not disciplined and we don't honor and stick to it. But I feel like time blocking, at least there for a while, was becoming just like a typical buzzword of like, oh yeah, I need a time block. I need to time block better. I need to manage my time better. I need to time block. I need like time management and time blocking just seem to go hand in hand, and nobody's good at either of them. Okay. But I'm going to ask you, like, do you honor and stick to your time blocks? If you time block an hour to 2 hours to work on something important for your business, do you typically honor it and stick to it? If you don't, I would encourage you to figure out why don't you? Because there can be a lot of reasons behind it. Maybe one of those reasons is you just literally didn't feel like it. Okay, that becomes a different conversation. And it could be because you're not excited to do it or it's scary to you. In which case, then I would solicit some advice or some help from someone that knows what to do or how to do it or whatever. They can guide you down it to get it exciting. Or it's something you need to outsource that you shouldn't be doing. Okay. If you didn't do it because something more important always comes up, I would say you probably need to reevaluate priorities and how you manage important in things. And I'll share a couple thoughts about that here in a second. But I think so I just say that to say, if 80% of the time you stick to your time block, fantastic. If 80% of the time you don't honor that time block, I want you to dive deeper and self-analyze a little bit. What are the patterns behind that? Because when we understand patterns, when we understand why we don't do what we say we're going to do and what we know we need to do, then we can go and put solutions together to figure out, okay, how do we actually get better about this? And how do we make sure that this doesn't become a lifelong thing that we can then overcome? Okay. So second point on that. Sorry, didn't mean to go that deep with it. Know your strengths and weaknesses of time. And what I mean by that is, for me, I know kind of what my creative time of day is. I know when, if I need an uninterrupted hour and a half, that I know when to do it. I know when not to do it. Okay. Monday morning, coming out of a weekend in which I try not to work and open my computer much, is not a good time for me to do anything productive because I'm usually just trying to catch up and kind of get my head above water a little bit to kick off the week. It's also why I don't schedule anything before either a team meeting or my coaching calls at 9:00 on Monday morning, because I need that hour to hour and a half here in the office just to kind of catch up from the weekend. I don't plan on getting anything else really done. And if I do, it's icing on the cake. Okay. One thing that we're working through right now is we want to update kind of our messaging and some of our kind of marketing and like tagline. And we're not going through like any crazy rebrands. We want to update our website and just do some stuff. It's time, it's overdue. And I know that. And so I've got time blocked out tomorrow morning. I'm going to go to Starbucks just to get in a different environment for an hour and a half. I got a perfect window built into my calendar already for this. And that is a great time for me to do this. Because I'll make sure by the end of the day, I get all the little to-dos at a good point. I got time throughout the rest of the day tomorrow to get the rest of the work done I need to tomorrow. Like, I'm setting myself up for success. The only thing that should ever bump out anything you're time blocking, right? Time blocking is for the important things. It's for me needing to sit down and update our messaging. Is it mission critical to our success next week? No. But is it something that I know that I need to work on and that we want to have redone before we get to Expo? Yes, of course. So I know that I need to work on that. The only thing that's ever going to bump that out of place, it should be bumping your time block out of place, and I say possibly, is things that come up that are urgent and important. If you've never heard of the Eisenhower matrix, I would suggest do a little bit of research on this, get familiar with the concept behind it, kind of puts things into quadrants to help identify, okay, what's my focus today? What can I delegate? What can be put off? Like, kind of goes through like on how urgent, how important things are. And something that's very urgent and important might shift that time block. Okay. What I mean by that is in your painting company, all of a sudden you have two painters call off and you got to figure out how are we going to get these two jobs done. And it's maybe not you going to paint, but now you got to go stop by a customer's job and smooth some stuff over and kind of buy some time until your painters can get there. Like there's going to be things that become urgent and important in our business. But what you got to really truly figure out is what's really urgent and important and what's just an excuse to derail you from your focus. Because I find out that a lot of people think things are urgent and important, and maybe what I even just said really wouldn't even qualify. Should have made a better note of this ahead of time. But like a lot of people think things are urgent and important and they're not, right? Like getting a letter from the IRS about anything really isn't urgent and important, because if it was, they would have sent somebody to your door, not sent you something through the mail that's going to take 3 to 35 days to show up. So like, while maybe you need to start the process of addressing it, we don't need to like freak out and cancel your day to be on hold with the IRS for 7 hours. All right. Now I understand there's a mental component to that too. But really stop. Like I look at what's urgent and important is like, what is going to keep money from coming in the door tomorrow? If you have a pissed off customer that will not pay you, that becomes a pretty urgent, important thing to get taken care of. Maybe that's worth killing a time block for. But again, one painter calling off sick doesn't really mean that you need to cancel your day to go hop in and do some stuff. Okay. A good friend of mine recently started asking people, what's my deadline? If somebody emailed her and asked for something to be done, it's Maggie Kuiper, I'll just say that. She doesn't mind me sharing this. She started asking people, hey, what's my deadline on that? That helps us figure out where do things fall in that urgent and important, right? I've got a couple of things sitting in my inbox that I so appreciate this, that they put, hey, we need this done by January 31st. Fantastic. It will get done by January 31st. I promise you that. There's also a really good chance it's not going to get done until January 30th or 31st, but I know what my deadline is, right? So that really helps you kind of prioritize things out so you're not spending time doing tasks that could be put off until those little 5 to 10 minute pockets of random downtime that you end up having. So, third point in honoring your calendar, we have to learn to say no. I'm going to make an educated guess here and say that 80% of you listening to this struggle saying no to things that don't serve your purpose or advance your business. And because of that, your schedule gets clustered and you always feel busy. Am I right? I'm going to say most of us aren't good with that. Okay. We aren't good with putting a lens in place for our business that really kind of forces us to say, is this part of my purpose in life? And is this, or is this going to advance my business and get me closer to my goals this year? Now, again, I'm talking business here. You can kind of apply this into your personal life too. Is it going to help me get closer to my goals this year or not? But how do we say no to these things? Okay. Most of us, believe it or not, we're people pleasers. Okay. We are people pleasers to a T, and it sucks. Whether we really are like deep down or not, or we just don't like saying no to people. There's something about us, is a lot of us as human beings, we just want to say yes to everything. And when you say yes to everything, that means you say no to a lot of the things that are important. And so how do you be very guarded with your schedule? And how do you look through that lens of, does this serve my purpose in life and what I'm here on this earth to do? Or does it advance my business in some way, shape, or form? And if the answer is no to both, then maybe we should say no to it. Now, there are seasons for this, okay, where this can be more lax than others. And what I mean by that is, perfect example, right? We're in the middle of year-end stuff, doing some closeout with some of our clients, working through all that. We're finishing up some custom build outs on our launch pads for some of our clients that requested some stuff. Getting just kicked off with the year. We've got PCA Expo coming up. Like, I'm kind of in a season right now that for the most part, I'm just saying no to most things that are not like new client meetings, or serving our existing clients, or things that really need to happen for our business, in our Q1 goals. Okay. If it doesn't filter into those things, I'm pretty much just saying no to it right now. But I know that it's kind of for a season that we're in, and that once we get through into March, April, May, things should open up a little bit. Maybe not. Maybe I get a really travel heavy springtime again, which I would be totally fine with. And I have to say no through that season too. Because guess what? I've kind of just gotten used to it, unfortunately. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by this, as an example, is people that want to grab coffee, want to grab lunch, want to get together. And I'm all fine for that, because I believe in human connection and friendship, and there's like a relationship component. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to lunch with a good friend of mine. He's our insurance agent. We refer some business to him. He's a good friend, but I'm doing it next week when I actually had a relatively light week already. Okay. So I was intentional behind that. I was like, hey, I can't do it any other weeks, but this week I actually don't have a lot of client meetings. I got a few things I need to knock out, but I can totally carve out an hour to grab lunch. Okay. So I still balance this. I'm not ruthless and a jerk about it. But also if I told him, hey, like, there's no way I can do this, he'd get it. Okay. But what I mean by this is it's all those random requests, all the little things that like take away from your time and your distraction. It's all the little things. So just, what they are, what you struggle saying no to, where you need to prioritize your time. So just start doing it this year. The last point I want to leave you guys with, point number 4 here. I want you guys to be big rock focused. If you've ever heard of this concept, there's an analogy out there, a story, a concept, something that exists. And it talks about, I think it was a teacher doing a demonstration, and he had 4 things in front of him and then a large pitcher in front of him. And in one of the smaller things, he had big rocks. The next thing, he had some like gravel. The third jar, he had sand. In the fourth jar, he had water. And they said that if he wanted to put all 4 of those things into the empty container, how would he be able to get all 4 of those individual components in there and make it work together? And he shared, if you put all the water in first, there won't be room for anything else, right? You put all sand in first, there won't be room for anything else. But if you put the big rocks in first, and then you put the gravel in, the gravel will fill in some of the crevices in between the big rocks, right? And then you put the sand in after that, it'll fill in even more spots in between the gravel and some of the gaps. And then lastly, there'll be room for some water in there, right? And that's how you get everything together. And the point of the story is when you focus on putting what's most important in there first, the big rocks, then you can put in everything else behind it. And then everything does actually fit in there. And it's kind of similar into your life, right? If you think through what are your big rocks, I know for me, mine are my family, my faith. And this year, one of my big rocks is my health and fitness. Like, I have to take better care of myself more than I have the last couple of years. I've let just the craziness and the growing business be an excuse of that. And so it's like time to kind of get that under control again. And so those are my big rocks, right? But everybody's got different big rocks. And then you've got your gravel, and then you've got your sand, and then you've got your water. And again, we focus too much of our time on the mundane, unimportant things, which is the water and the sand. And we don't focus enough on the big rocks and the gravel and things that actually make a difference, that are intentional in living with our purpose in life. And so I would encourage you, if you can get good at time blocking, and you can really understand what are your priorities, then this is going to be super helpful. You should schedule your big rocks first, and then your gravel, and then your sand, and then your water, right? But again, most people do that backwards. If you don't have the fundamentals of getting stuff done, if you can't stick to a game plan that you create in time block, you can tell me you're going to be big rock focused, but I don't really believe you, right? I could tell you that, I'm going to focus on my health and fitness this year. Well, guess what? Part of my repeating system I put together is that 6:30 a.m. accountability text to John McFarland, right? By the way, we're going like 2.5 weeks strong here, both making great progress. Keep you guys posted as we go through this whole season. John's got added accountability thanks to this podcast. You didn't even know it. But if I don't have those things in my calendar, if I don't honor those time blocks, if I don't honor the gym time blocks that I have in my week, like, yeah, I can tell you that it's a priority, but if I don't focus on sticking to the game plan, like, it's really not a priority. Basically what I'm saying is, no, my business ends up being more important than my health and fitness. Now, I will move those time blocks around as things come up, meetings get requested, specific times, but I really do everything I can to not delete them out. Okay, that's the thing. When it goes in my calendar, I will move it. I try not to delete it out unless push comes to shove. I will be honest, I had a time block in for this afternoon, but after having the flu, the end of last week through the weekend, snow day, today was just the one thing that had to give. And I'm okay with it because I've got a game plan on how I'm going to go 5 for 5 the rest of the week. Okay. You can do the math. You can tell I'm recording this on a Tuesday. So here's what I want to leave you guys with. All right. I talked about priorities. I talked about big rocks. And I want to share just a real quick story from a good friend of mine, Mr. Nick Slavic. If you guys have known Nick for any length of time, you've probably seen some internal changes in Nick through social media, through being at events with him. He has a much different presence about him the last couple of years, and it's been really cool to see that kind of transform in his life as he's figured out his true purpose and priorities, and focused on his family a lot more, and just a lot of these things that he's been able to do because of all the years of building his business. And I asked him one time, I don't remember if it was a post, if it was something, but it was something he was talking about, like his family. And I think I kind of asked the question. I remember exactly what he said word for word. I'll never forget this the rest of my life, but I don't remember the exact question I asked him, but it was something along the lines of, Nick, like, you are in demand in this industry. You are building your business, but you're also like juggling being a great father and husband and like being present with your family. Like, how do you navigate this? And I'll never forget what he said. He said, Chris, when I realized that my family was my priority and not my business was when everything changed. And that simple sentence has been hugely influential for me in my life. And I wanted to share that as I wrap this up, as we were just talking about priorities, to help maybe a simple thing like that hit home to somebody listening to this. Because for me, I know that my family is my priority, but I always say, when something's a priority, show me your bank account, your calendar, right? Like, that is the eternal, like, discipline, the habit tracker, whatever you want to say, and follow through with it. So you can tell me what your priority are, but let me see what your calendar looks like, right? And I would tell you, yeah, my family's my priority, but I had this weird view of like, but like, my business provides for my family, so therefore my business is just as big of a priority as my family is. And while I think that's true, and there has to be a component for that, it's helped me rewire my brain differently to realize that my family actually is my priority, and that my business is secondary. It is a necessity to provide for my family, right? There's a level of whether it's income or time freedom or whatever that my business needs to yield to do what I want to do with our family. But also, at the end of the day, like, my family is my priority. And so I appreciate Nick just sharing something that was so simple that I don't think he realized at the time, has been so influential for myself, and I hope it helps for you too. Thanks for plugging into this week's episode. I hope you're able to take a few nuggets away from it to implement into your business. Remember, knowledge without implementation is useless. If you're curious about what we do and how we help painting contractors all over North America, schedule a free business analysis meeting with us at www.elitebusinessadvisors.com. Our entire team of advisors have ran and managed painting companies just like myself and are here to help support you on your journey. We have packages available for contractors at every stage of business, from flying solo and just starting out, all the way to multi-million-dollar businesses. And lastly, if you loved this episode, please leave us a rating and a review. It helps others on the platform find our podcast, and it could be the best blessing that's ever happened to them thanks to you. Thanks for plugging in, and we'll see you back for next week's episode.